the economic cost of Pahalgam and Sindhur. Modi salutes the valor of armed forces, shows mirror to Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi addressed the nation for the first time 51 hours after the ceasefire between India and Pakistan following the success of Operation Sindoor. While on one hand the Prime Minister saluted the unparalleled valor of the Indian forces, unparalleled valor of Indian forces. On the other hand, he shots the mirror to Pakistan and reprimanded it. Prime Minister Modi said that we have given our forces full freedom to destroy the terrorists. Today, every terrorist and terrorist organization knows what is the result of removing the vermilion from the forehead of the sisters and daughters of India. While in Pakistan, he said that India will kill the enemies of the country by entering there then in future too. Taking the name of Bhavalpur and Muridke, he clearly said that the global universities of terror are in Pakistan only. The strings of major terrorist attacks in the world are somehow connected with Pakistan only. He described Operation Sindoor as a reflection of the country's variant of sentiments. Modi said that our action against terrorism has not ended, it has only been postponed. He warned Pakistan to stop nurturing the terrorism that it is nourishing, or else there will be no way for Pakistan to survive. The Prime Minister ended his address with the slogan Bharat Mata Ki Jai. Earlier on Monday, India Pak held talks at the DCMO level. Prior to that, Indian Army commanders held a press conference for the second consecutive day and gave more information about the operation. On behalf of the Defense Forces DGMO Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, DGO Air Marshal Avdesh Kumar Bharti and DGNO Vice Admiral Air Pramod gave information as well as answer to the media queries. Air Marshal Bharti said to be and clear thing first our attack was against the enemy terrorist of India, but Pakistan Army interfered. Due to which Pakistan Army had to bear the consequences, taking its UAVs and copters of Chinese origin and Chinese drones, but the Indian air defense system shot them down. This shows how China is supporting Pakistan by following double-faced policy. But the strong system of Indian defense forces left no stone unturned is destroying the Chinese weapons, considering them to be useless like Chinese goods. Air Marshal Bharti said that whether it is Chinese drones or Turkish, we are ready to face any kind of technology while saluting the 140 crore people of the country and the sea wings of defense forces. DCMO Lieutenant General Rajiv said that it is difficult for any country, let alone Pakistan, to penetrate the security of multi-layered layers of radar, air defense system, vintage air defense system, and modern air defense system from our international border. Even if the enemy goes to one layer, Some system would have shot down the enemy before he could reach the second layer because our air defense shield is always in active mode. By Shakira layer promotion added, the Navy was engaged in surveillance detection. We gave multiple sensors and inputs, identified those sets which to be neutralized immediately. Overall, our Prime Minister and the army commanders of the country have filled the mind of every Indian with a confidence that the country is in safe hands and every Indian can sleep peacefully with the strength of our defense forces. The economic cost of Pahalgam and Chindo's between 1:05 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. May 7, 2025, India launched Operation Sindoor, a payback for the horrific acts of killing in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir. India targeted and destroyed 9 deaths of terror training in POK and Pakistan, Punjab. Following India's operation, the Karachi Stock Exchange experienced significant volatility. The KSE index is down by 16%. Until May 8, it was reported that as much as rupees under 20 billion worth of investors' wealth had been loaded in Pakistan stock market. Good returns. Pakistani economy as of 2024. Pakistani's nominal gross domestic product (GDP) is estimated to be around $374.6 billion. However, a substantial portion of the country's economic landscape is defined by its external liabilities. Pakistan's total external debt stands at a considerable 130 to 31 billion dollars in 24 to 25. This figure includes borrowings from multilateral institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, bilateral loans from countries such as China and Saudi Arabia, and other forms of external financing. Incidentally, Pakistan has taken bailout loans from the IMF, a total of 24 times, the highest for any nation. Since joining the organization in 1950, the first loan was taken in 1958, making Pakistan the first country to seek IMF assistance. Pakistan's most recent loan was in 2024. As per World Bank data, as of June 2023, the total public debt and liabilities were estimated to be about 54.3% of the GDP out of Pakistan's national budget of 14.46 trillion rupees for 23 to 24. Total revenue amounts to 6.9 trillion rupees. Substantial 7.3 trillion is earmarked solely for interest payment. Clearly, the interest burden alone is more than the total revenue. EFM data. Can a country with this precarious financial condition ever afford the luxury of being a terrorism squatter or dream of fighting a war? While one of think tank has estimated that a low intensity warfare, that is Kargil conflict in 22, caused India to reportedly spend rupees 14.6 billion per day, while Pakistan spent close to rupees 3.7 billion per day. The latter still reels under an unserviceable debt. Cost of the Hidayat model for India, the most striking voice in the wake of the heinous militant attack in Pahalgam has been calls for India to more in Israel. April 22 is to India, what October 7 was to Israel, said one television commentator. What does an Israel like response cost and what does violent conflict do to a nation's economy? In the most recent union budget of India, the government increased its defense budget to rupees 6.21 lakh crore, approximately $70 billion. It remains modest compared to China's 2024 defense budget of over $200 billion. For example, Israel's military expenditure surged by 65% to $6.5 billion in 2024. Defense accounted for 8.8% of GDP, an increase of 135% from the allocation for defense in 2015, which was an already high 5.4% of GDP. India's defense allocation remains below 2% of its GDP, even lower than the levels of 2.4% in FY 21 financial year of 2021. Sharp military aggression is also an intentionally loaded cost. The government spent close to $6 billion in December that followed the October 7 attack alone. There are other costs that have run longer and deeper across the Israeli citizenry. The 2025 state budget for Israel included an austerity package with steep spending cuts to offset balance while cost and tax measures including increasing income tax brackets and an increase in the support tax levied on the country's wealthiest. For India, the thousand cuts do bleed and shed in the future. However, India's handsome foreign exchange reserves of over $650 billion could help cushion against a rise in military and other costs arising out of this and future Sindhu's other shocks to the stock market in case of a full-fledged war between the two neighbors would definitely cause India's economic jaguar, but wartime recession austerity could be established could enable India to overcome all that. Can Pakistan also afford 1,000 cuts to Shell? Abdullah Wahid writes for IMF. The options for Pakistan include raising indirect taxes, which constitute 60% of total tax revenue, or direct taxes 40% of revenue, approximately 70% of which is derived from withholding taxes. These withholding taxes can indirectly affect consumers. Such a move could trigger further inflation, which has averaged 25% over last 2 years and is rising according to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. Consumer price inflation surged to 31.5% in February 2023, the highest since 1971. True inflation has now been tamped to 4% as of 2024, but it could rise. High inflation has eroded consumers' purchasing power, contributing to a projected poverty rate of 37.2%. Exorbitant food costs led to a 38% decline in consumers' purchasing power in 2023. Even today, poverty remains the same as Pakistan has been relying excessively on debt financing. It has been exposing itself for years to financial hyenas, ladders like China that extract many pounds of flesh from those whose financial vulnerabilities are recessive. Currently, Pakistan's external debt has surged to $131 billion compared to mere $67.2 billion in June 2006. Over half of the budget is allocated to servicing this debt, an amount equivalent to 106% of total tax revenue. Pakistan has faced external debt repayments of $73 billion between 2023 and 2025. Over the past 7 years, external debt has been doubled from $65 billion in 2015, 24% of GDP to $130 billion, 40% of GDP in the current year. No wonder it seeks perennial support from IMF, Saudi Arabia, and China. Pakistan's capacity to address its huge debt burden is constrained by the absence of an effective debt management strategy as well as the country's massive debt servicing obligations, which surpass its overall tax revenue. Rescheduling that is only a temporary solution as the frequency and duration of such action are limited. Ultimately, outstanding debt must be repaid to prevent the government's insolvency or the forfeiture of the strategic assets. In the absence of a strategy for increasing revenue, Pakistan pays a heavy price like handing over a piece of POK to China. Ukraine, in return for US support, has had to surrender its rare earth minerals to USA. Pakistan too has done that by doing away with a portion of such minerals from Balochistan to China. The aftermath of Pahalgam, that is the stoppage of water, Operation Sindoor and more to come will certainly increase Pakistan expenses by at least 8 to 9 billion dollars. There will be other economic bonds wound as a result of Pahalgam. Airfares have already surged and will go even higher. Inflation could once again touch the sky. Tourism, FDI, and manufacturing would find themselves struggling. The government may end up losing up to 100 billion rupees in annual revenue. And India may well be relentless in its revengeful cuts. The economic cost of conflict are clear. In a fragile phase of economic growth and recovery, Pakistan risks undoing all the progress it has made on improving fiscal consolidation and macroeconomic stability. If nothing else, Pakistan is certainly on downward spiral to modern day economic slavery. It must stop making choices like Pahalgam. This 5 billion exposures to junk food ads can coax kids to consume more calories daily. Diplomatic victory. Pak hands over BSF Jawan after 21 days. India India too releases Pak troopers nabbed in Srinagar on May 3. He will continue to protect nation, Kin says. Emotion reign high in a diplomatic victory for India. Border Security Force BSF Constable Purnam Kumar Shaw was detained by Pakistan Rangers on April 23 after inadvertently crossing the border, was released on Wednesday via the Attari border. His return comes just days after India launched Operation Sindoor in retaliation to the Pahalgam attack and the subsequent ceasefire declaration. So, who spent 3 weeks in Pakistan custody, was reportedly freed following intense negotiations during the Director General of Military Operations DGMO level talks held on May 12. Initially, flag meetings between BSF and Pakistan Rangers were held regularly to secure his release, but after Operation Sindhu, direct interaction was halted, prompting discussions through alternative channels. Sources Official sources Official sources confirmed that the constable was handed over to the Indian authorities around 10:30 a.m. A BSF spokesperson said Shah was handed over peacefully and in accordance with established protocols. Meanwhile, the BSF released Mohammad Abdullah, a Pakistani soldier who was apprehended in Rajdhani, Rajasthan, Shri Ganganagar district on May 3. A BSF official speaking on condition of anonymity confirmed the development. Abdullah was later handed over to the Pakistan. Three more die, Abrisher Hooch told 24. India strikes executed sans loss of assets, government says. Justice Gavai is 52nd CCI will have 6 months stint. News from New Delhi, Justice B.R. Gavai, the senior most judge of the Supreme Court, was on Wednesday sworn in as the 52nd Chief Justice of India. President Draupadi Murmu administered the oath of office to Justice Bhushan Ram Krishna Gavai in Hindi at a brief ceremony held at Rashtrapati Bhavan at 10 a.m. Justice Gavai is only the second individual from the Dalit community to become the CGI. Former Defense Secretary appointed UPSC Chief MP Minister booked for Colonel Qureshi's remark. Creative naming wouldn't alter reality. India slams China. Terms beijing attempts to rename 27 locations in Arunachal Pradesh preposterous. Government briefly blocks Turkish Chinese media. India on Wednesday banned Turkish state broadcaster TRT World and China's Global Times for allegedly publishing unverified reporters, including a claim that an Indian Rafale fighter jet had been shot down by Pakistani forces near Bawalpur. The government later lifted the ban. BJP to held Tiranga Yatra in honor of armed forces from Karnal. The Bharatiya Janata Party BJP will organize a Shaurya Samman Tiranga Yatra on May 16 in Karnal to honor the valor and sacrifice of the Indian Armed Forces. The Yatra will be led by Union Power Minister Manohar Lal Khattar with the participation of all MLAs from the Karnal district. In this regard, a preparatory meeting was held on Wednesday at the BJP's district office, Karan Kamal. The meeting was chaired by former MP Sanjay Bhatia, while District President Praveen Lathal presided. Bhatia reviewed the preparations and said the Tiranga Yatra was being organized to pay tribute to the Army's courageous response to the recent terror attack in Pahalgam. Speaking to the media, Bhatia and the army gave a strong reply to Pakistan for the brutal attack on Indian tourists in Pahalgam on April 22. Instead of targeting civilians, our army struck terrorist hideouts inside Pakistan's territory with precision and bravery. This yatra is a mark of respect to our armed forces for this strong action. We further said that Tiranga Yatra were being held across the country from May 13 to 23 at major locations with participation from prominent individuals across various sections of society. Operation Sindoor, conducted under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is not just a military operation but a new chapter in India's national security doctrine and its decisive stand against terrorism. Bhatia said. He praised the Indian Armed Forces, intelligence agencies, and Israel for successfully destroying terrorist bases in Pakistan, calling it a testament to India's growing strength and resolve. Bring three canal sectors under MCCL Chani urged. From Karnal, the demand for the inclusion of sectors 4, 5, and 16 in the Karnal Municipal Corporation has intensified with residential and public representatives raising the issue on various platforms. A delegation led by Karnal MLA Jagmohan Anand, bodied councillors Sankal, under whose ward the ministers fall along with his wife and former councillor Megha Bhandari met Chief Minister Narsin Chandigarh in this regard. They asked the CM to include the sectors in the KMC to ensure better civic management and development. The delegation pointed out that while the state government had already announced the transfer of maintenance responsibilities for development sectors from the Haryana Sahari Vikas Pradhikaran to urban local bodies, Sector 4, 5 and 16 continue to be maintained by the HSV. They especially requested the inclusion of water and sewage services of the sectors in KMC's control to streamline the tendering process for maintenance and development work. What Education Department wants to achieve by integration of schools? Explainer Mbala. The Directorate of Elementary Education has started the exercise of identifying and verifying the co-located government primary schools in the state. As such institutions are proposed to be integrated. The Education Department officials believe that the integration will ensure optimum utilization of resources and staff. How many schools have been identified? What is the purpose behind the consolidation of the schools? What were the directions issued to DEEOs? What are the various concerns of teachers union? How many schools have been identified? As per list, there are 194 such government primary schools and government girls primary schools spread across various districts, including Ambala, Bhiwani, Fatehgarh, Hisar, Gurugram, Kaithal, Jind, Sirsa, Sonipat, and Rohtak. These schools are proposed to be integrated. It is expected that there would be more such schools. The district elementary education officers in the state have been directed to verify the list and check for more such schools in respective districts. What is the purpose behind the consolidation of the schools? As per the department, the identified schools are located within the same campus or 0 kilometer distance, 100 meters or within 100 meters radius. The department has proposed the consolidation of so located government primary schools. The officials believe that in view of the shortage of staff, the integration will help the department ensure optimum utilization of resources and the staff. What were the directions issued to EEOs? The detailed information regarding 194 schools with the current enrollment numbers and location was shared with DEOs with the directions to verify the list and reveal and revert with remarks. They were also asked to identify more such schools in respective districts and send the report by mail 14. What are the various concerns of teachers union? राजकीय प्राथमिक शिक्षक संस्थान of its leaders in Ambala have expressed their concern related to the cost of teachers and jobs of support staff, including the midday meal workers. As per the union, if the schools are integrated, the cost of teachers in the department will be cut down, and it will also be a direct impact on the employment of the midday meal workers. The government girls' schools, especially in the rural areas, were open to motivate people to send girls to schools, though time has changed. The integration of schools have been adverse impact in some regions in the state, and such a move is not in favor of the student, says union leader. Outrage over Turkey Azerbaijan support to Pak tourist bookings dip. US India Pak need to have direct communication from New Delhi. Commenting on developments between India and Pakistan, the US State Department has said that both sides need to engage in direct communication to preserve regional stability. This marks a shift in the USA's public stance since May 10 when President Donald Trump posted on X to announce a ceasefire between India and Pakistan on Tuesday. Thomas Piggott, principal deputy spokesperson of the US State Department, was asked at a media briefing in Washington, D.C. about India's rejection of any US mediation effort. Asked how hopeful the US was of bringing both sides together for talks, Piggott replied, I am not going to speculate on that. We encourage direct communication. We have been clear on that. We continue to encourage that direct communication. Why the clamor to ban Turkish apple? Cabinet approves 3700 crore rupees semiconductor plant in UP. India Pak uphold pact on not hitting nuclear facilities. News from New Delhi. Forever for decades. India and Pakistan have upheld an agreement not to attack each other's civilian nuclear facilities, an arrangement that has endured periods of armed hostilities, including the recent skirmishes signed in 1988 and in force since January 1991. The agreement on the prohibition of attack against nuclear installations and facilities commits both nuclear armed neighbors to refrain from targeting each other's civilian nuclear infrastructure. As part of the agreement, the two countries exchange lists of their nuclear installations every year on January 1. However, the Pahalgam terror attack has led both countries to re-evaluate their existing bilateral agreements. India's draft nuclear doctrine underscores deterrence based on the threat of inflicting unacceptable damage while maintaining a no first use policy. Three failed strikes, Adampur Air Base remains unshaken through 6 decades. Armed Forces top brass briefs veterans think tanks on Operation Sindhu. Trump secures 1.2 tons dollar aviation defense commitment in Qatar. Meets Syrian leaders, urges him to recognize Israel once country is straightened up. Iran must seek support of proxies, USA. President Donald Trump told Gulf leader on Wednesday he urgently wanted to make a deal with Iran to wind down its nuclear program, but Tehran must end its support of proxy groups throughout the region as part of any potential agreement. Iran must stop sponsoring terror and verifiably cease pursuit of nuclear weapons, Trump said in remarks at a meeting of leaders from the GCC. From Riyadh, Qatar signed $96 billion deal on Wednesday to purchase up to 210 jets from US manufacturers going for Qatar flag carrier. The agreements would generate an economic exchange worth $1.2 trillion, the White House said. The agreements also include a statement of intent that could lead to a $38 billion in investment at Qatar's AIUD air base and other defense capabilities. Earlier in the day, US President Donald Trump met interim Syrian President Ahmad al-Shahra in Saudi Arabia, the first encounter between the two nations leaders in 25 years and one that could mark a turning point for Syria as it struggles to emerge from decades of international isolation. The meeting on the sidelines of Trump's get-together with the leaders of the Gulf Cooperation Council marks a major turn of events for Australians still adjusting to life after the over 50 years iron grip rule of the Assad family. Trump praised Al Sahara to reporters after the meeting on Air Force One, saying he was a young, attractive guy, tough guy, strong past, very strong past fighter under the Nom de Abu Muhammad al Golani al Shara had ties to al Qaeda and joined insurgents battling US forces in Iraq before entering the Syrian war. He was even imprisoned by US troops there for several years. Trump had announced the day before as he kicked off his Sea and Nation West Asia tour in Riyadh that he would also moved to lift US sanctions imposed on Syria under the deposed autocrat Bashar Assad. People across Syria cheered in the streets and set off fireworks on Tuesday night to celebrate hopeful their nation looked out of credit cards and global finance might resign the world's economy when they need investments the most. Trump asked Al Sara to normalize ties with longtime foe Israel. Moscow silent whether Putin will attend Ukraine peace talks in Turkey. Operation Black Forest will blow to Naxal. Security forces says calm questions government silence on ceasefire. Jaishankar's security up. Some judges take too many breaks. Supreme Court says. Supreme Court not to urgent listing of PIL against Justice Verma. FIR against MP Minister for using foul language against Colonel Qureshi. News from New Delhi, Madhya Pradesh. Tribal Affairs Minister Vijay Shah was booked on Wednesday after the High Court criticized him for passing dangerous and spurious remarks and using language of the gutters against Colonel Sofia Qureshi. Along with IAF Wing Commander Yomika Singh, Colonel Qureshi has been the face of press briefings on Operation Sindoor. Shah, a Madhya Pradesh BJP leader, had sparked a controversy with his objectionable comments against Colonel Qureshi, whom he tried to project as a sister of terrorists while addressing a gathering in Ramkota village near Indore on Monday, promoting the Congress to demand his resignation. Taking suo moto cognizance of Shah's controversial utterances, a division bench said his remarks had the propensity to cause disharmony, feelings of enmity, hatred, or ill will between members of different religions. The remarks were disparaging to the armed forces, which is perhaps the last institution in the country that reflects integrity, discipline, sacrifice, selflessness, character, honor, and indomitable courage, said. The High Court directed the state DGP to the FIR against Shah under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita section 152, acts endangering the sovereignty and integrity of Indian and 191, promoting enmity between different groups on religion, race, or language. 19 197 statements or action that causes disharmony or hatred between different groups. The same must be done by today evening failing is tomorrow when the matter is listed. The court may contemplate proceedings against the lazy before contemplate of the order and high court order. Some judges take too many breaks, Supreme Court states. Vigilance in border areas, seekers and construction of bunkers, father battles, injuries, unaware twin, children killed in shelling, another army commander nation, overall security, another successful trial run of Tantra, quasi strain. To win the wars before the war. Google's rolling out of Gemini AI chatbot to kids is risky. His human-like interaction will be confusing and potentially risky for young children. They may believe content can be trusted. Google has announced it will roll out its Gemini artificial intelligence chatbot to children under the age of 13 while the launch starts within the next week in the US and Canada. It will launch in Australia later this year. The chatbot will not be available to people via Google's family link accounts, but this development comes with major risk. It also highlights how even if children are banned from social media, parents will still have to play a game of whack-a-mole with new technologies as they try to keep their children safe. A good way to address this would be to urgently implement a digital duty of care for big tech companies such as Google. Google's family link account allow parents to control access to content and apps such as YouTube. To create a child's account, parents provide personal details including the child's name and date of birth. This may raise privacy concern for parents concerned about data breaches that but Google says children data when using the system will not be used to train the AI system. Chatbot access will be on by default, so parents need to actively turn the feature off to restrict access. Young children will be able to prompt the chatbot for text responses or to create images which are generated by the system. Google acknowledges the system may make mistakes, so assessment of the quality and trustworthiness of content is needed. Chatbot can make up information known as hallucinating, so if children use the chatbot for homework help, they need to check facts with reliable sources. Google and other search engines retrieve original materials for people to review. A student can read news articles, magazines, and other sources when writing up an assignment. Generative AI tools are not the same as search engines. AI tools look for patterns in source material and create new text responses or images based on the query or prompt. A person provides a child could ask the system to draw cat, and the system will scan for patterns in the data of what a cat looks like, such as whiskers, pointy ears, and a long tail, and generate an image that includes those cat-like details. Understanding the differences between materials retrieved in a Google search and content generated by an AI tool will be challenging for young children. Studies show even adults can be deceived by AI tools, and even highly skilled professionals such as lawyers have reportedly been fooled into using fake content generated by Chat GPT and other chat bots. Google says the system will include built-in safeguards designed to prevent the generation of inappropriate or unsafe content. However, these safeguards could create new problems. For example, if particular words such as breast are restricted to protect children from accessing inappropriate sexual content, this could mistakenly also exclude children from accessing age appropriate content about bodily changes during puberty. Many children are also very tech savvy, often with well developed skills for navigating app and getting around system controls. Parents cannot rely exclusively on inbuilt safeguards. They need to revive generated content and help their children understand how the system works and assess whether content is accurate. The E-Safety Commission has issued an online safety advisory on the potential risk of AI chatbot, including those designed to stimulate personal relationships, particularly for young children. The E-Safety advisory explains that AI companions can share normal, harmful content, distort reality, and give advice that is dangerous. The advisory highlights the risk of young children in particular who are still developing the critical thinking and life skills needed to understand how they can be misguided or manipulated by computer programs and what to do about it. My research team has recently examined a range of AI chatbots such as Chat GPT, Replica, and Tessa. We found these systems mirror people's interaction based on the many unwritten rules that govern social behavior, or what are known as willing rules. These rules are what lead us to say thank you when someone holds the door open for us, or I'm sorry when you bump into someone on the street. By mimicking these and others social uh, niceties, these systems are designed to gain our trust. These human-like interactions will be confusing and potentially risky. For young children, they may believe content can be trusted even when the chat bot is responding with a fake information, and they may believe they are engaging with a real person rather than a machine. This rollout is happening at a crucial time in Australia, as children under 16 will be banned from holding social media account in December. Children and parents must be educated in how all types of digital tools can be used appropriately and safely. As Gemini AI chatbot is not a social media tool, it will fall outside Australia's ban. Parents must keep up with new tool developments and understand the potential risk their children face. He highlights this highlights the urgent need to revisit Australia's proposed digital duty of care legislation. While the European Union and UK launched digital duty of care legislation in 2023, Australia has been on hold since November 2024. This legislation would hold technology companies to account by legislating that they deal with harmful content and source to protect everyone. To win the war before the wars. Court says from Chandigarh can't deny bail for refusal to confess. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has condemned the growing Polish practice of opposing bail on the ground that the accused is uncooperative merely because he refuses to confess, calling it a coercive and constitutionally impermissible tactic. The court asserted that such conduct violated the right against self-incrimination and undermined the very foundations of a fair investigation, opposing the release of an accused on bail solely because he refuses to testify against himself. A draconian practice that, in good conscience, cannot be allowed to continue unchecked by the court. Justice Shanti Sundaram said. The ruling came in a theft case registered under the provisions of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita on November 25, 2024 at Bajkhela Police Station in Gurugram district. The prosecution in 402-page status report sought custodial interrogation of the accused on the ground that he had not answered the questions put to him and had thereby failed to cooperate during investigation. The court, however, noted that silence could not be equated with guilt. It appeared that under the grab of non-cooperation and during investigation, the investigating agency is compelling the petitioner to make self-incriminating statements. The bench had adding that no one could be forced to admit guilt. Forcing a person to speak against himself goes against Article 23 of the Constitution, which protects individuals from self-incrimination. Justice Bharat said administering the process without adding it was the investigating officer's duty to conduct a fair and thorough investigation by gathering relevant evidence, both oral and documentary. Justice Barak said an investigation based on confessions was neither legally sustainable nor just, relying solely on self-incriminating statements made by the accused is not only legally unsound but also contrary to the principles of natural justice, he said. Residents in border areas seek urgent construction of bunkers. Further battles increase the military. Operation Sindoor was a world from the blue, actually like an out of syllabus event. It is good that full-scale war was avoided and one hopes no ceasefire violations take place. Even as the armed forces keep a wary eye on our borders, there are some takeaways that can be reduced as a whole brief. Debrief. The latest provocations from Pakistan leadership were not strategic. They were symptomatic, delivered in familiar terms. The speech was less policy and more performance, recycling props of grievance, historical injustice, and ideological threat. But something fundamental has changed. The world had stopped listening. India too didn't respond, not with outrage, not with frenzy, and that silence spoke louder than rebuttal. For New Delhi, this wasn't moment to react, it was one to reveal that Pakistan, once a state, is now a league of the delusional, where the few who speak of chaos and confrontation drown out the many who are for stability and dignity. Spark that failed, Kashmir answered back. If the intent was to ignite unrest in Kashmir, the response was sobering in Pahalgam and across the valley. There were no flames of discontent, no energy mobs to choreographed outrage. Instead, daily life continued in defiance of incitement. The people chose quiet resolve over promotive rage. India was heard. That was India's first and deepest answer, not from podiums, but from pavements, not with speeches, but with stillness. The strength of Indian life is the coherence of its diversity in Kashmir, as in Kanyakumari or Kohima, the constitution guarantees belonging. The armed forces reflect it. The people uphold it. India's unity diversity, far from fragile, is now strategic doctrine. The call to divide was answered not to rhetoric but by an enduring truth. India is many and yet one. Precision without spectacle. Wide words echoed across microphone. India acted quietly, precisely, and without theatrics. Strikes on terrorist infrastructure across the LOC and beyond were not announced with fanfare. They were calibrated, effective, and purposeful. Where the international response was telling silence, there was no outrage at Pakistan hostile UN listed terrorists, wrapping them in military colors, giving them state funerals, no press conferences, questioned why globally designated murderers were being honored with honor guards. Once again, the global order failed its contest. India, however, did not seek applause. The target was not moral high ground, it was deterrence, and the message was clear. The Indian threshold had shifted. Response now come without noise, but with weight. Escalation, then de-escalation of India's terms. Pakistan reacted with its usual reflex missiles from Earth. Most were deflected, others neutralized. This triggered the second response measures were unmistakable. Not just terror campus, but airfields were targeted, not indiscriminately but deliberately. This wasn't escalation for escalation's sake, it was doctrine in action. Precision that communicated capability, intent, and restraint, it hurt. And it worked. Pakistan's Director General of Military Operations reached out not with bluster but with accepted. not as concession but as control. The choreography of this moment was profound. No saber rattling, just calibrated consequences. This is always an area of discussion and debate. Shouldn't we? Conflict termination is never an easy choice. Oftentimes, observers are not into the loop on the political objectives, hence, a debate ensues as it should. In that response, India drew new red lines. No need to declare them. They were evident in action. The message: India will not start wars, but it will define when they begin and when they end. Strategic maturity is the real deterrent. This wasn't a flare up, it was a test, and India calibrated its response with telling effective. Gone is the era of reactivities, in its place is a posture of celebrated strength, strike when needed. Stop when the heart is acknowledged. Do not dramatize, operationalize what enabled this shift. Capability, yes, India today has real-time options, but more importantly, clarity. There is no space for false securities. Dialogue and terror do not coexist. There is no moral equivalency between an open democracy and a state-run terror league. This maturity is not accidental. It is the result of institutional reform, civil military coherence, and national clarity. India does not seek war, but it no longer fears escalation. It is called calibrated deterrence. By contrast, Dr.RK has become externalized. Its nuclear blackmail is now just that blackmail, not deterrent. The world sees it even if it doesn't seem so. The Indian PM has called out the blackmail and declared a terrorist strike is an act of war, a league that consumes its own. The tragedy of Pakistan is not its military, it is pupil silence, poised and helpless in a nation where moderate violence are silenced, dissent criminalized, and truth becomes treason. The saints savor, the innocents strategize, and the international community, through its financial institutions and rhetorical platitudes, sustains this dysfunction. India understands the defense. Our response has never been to punish the people of Pakistan. It has always been to isolate the machinery that holds them hostage. But make no mistake, as our PM has stated, we will not allow that machinery to harm us, nor to define the rules of engagement. Nuclear blackmail is now cautious. The world's blind spot and India's moral burden. Here lies the cause contradiction. Terrorism is treated as a problem only when it hurts the West. For decades, India has pleaded for a global definition of terror, but institutions paralyzed by power, politics, and commercial interest have equivocated. Meanwhile, IMF launched to go to states that bankrolls terror, innocents die while the resolutions remain unsigned. Democracies are hijacked through open platforms and God-blessed networks. New routes are now strategy. India has waited long enough. It now offers a pathway not of dominance but of design, not by exporting ideology but by embodying a civilizational idea, the coexistence of difference within a shared destiny. The new order, we will call it when it happens. Unity in diversity is not just India's civilizational inheritance, it is a geopolitical offering, the only antidote to The only antidote to engineered division and identity weaponization, India will not longer wait for the world to define terrorism or its response. It will collaborate with those who call it out when it happens, not only when it hurts. The price of silence is paid by the innocent, not the indifferent. The future belongs to those who collaborate, not those who waste. The statistics of humanity are changing. With the war before the war is part of new escalatory ladder. It has, I presume,